Hey, it's Django from Calvander Sound. Today we're going to be talking about integrating melodies with your chords. So you're kind of doing a chord melody thing. Our first example was Amazing Grace, which is just a classic melody that everyone should know how to play, and it's just using the three chords of D, G, and A. So I want to show you how to do that, but then I want to show you some exercises so that you can do it in other contexts as well. So let's start with Amazing Grace. The first thing to do, of course, is get the chords down, and there's a chart of the chords at calvandersound.com if you want to go check that out. It's a 1-4-5 in D, so it's D, G, and A. So it's D, and then optional, you can go D7 there, and then G, back to D, then D again, to A. And a lot of the time we'll do an A suspended, which means that we raise the third of the A chord to a 4. And then bring it back down to the major. And then D, D7, G, back to D, D again, to A or A sus, to G, and then back for the final D. So that's the chords. Now the question is, how do we play the melody at the very same time? Well, what we do is the melody kind of takes precedence. So the melody is... So what we do is we make sure that we can play the entire melody in this one open position. We don't want to have to go somewhere else on the neck and reconfigure our chords if we can help it. The idea of this is to use the open position to allow strings to ring while we're playing the melody, thus giving us both the melody and the chords. The main thing about the chords and how you fit them in with the melody is you just want to make sure that you hit each chord at least once each time it comes through. You don't have to strum it or anything like that. So taking just the first phrase where it's... So there's a hammer on there. But even better is actually to use your first and third finger on the D chord and then hammer on with your pinky. That way your middle finger can go on the high string and do this pull off, and then back to the B string, then back to the high string. So it's... Now the thing is, you don't have to play big bulky chords. The main thing is just to suggest the chords as they go by, the D and the G and the A. So, you know, for the G, when I play a G, I don't use this first finger on the A string. I find it muddies the whole sound of the chord to have a third right there by the bass note. So I leave it out and mute the A string with my third finger that's playing the low string. So that gives it a much more kind of open sound. But on the D, you don't want to put all three fingers down every time you play. Really, these two fingers are all you need to get the D sound. Now, here is where we get to one of the cardinal rules of incorporating melodies with your chords. You always want the melody note to be the highest note you're playing. Okay, so if the melody note is... then you don't want to be playing because it gets lost. The key to it is to put the melody on top. So that's why we start with this phrase, and then once we have that, we can play the chord, but when we play the chord, we're not going to go any higher than that melody note. So it's like this. And then the melody goes higher. Then we can play the chord all the way up to the E string. Now notice that the melody went, so it's open on the high E and then the third fret on the D string. So what we do is we're going to a G chord, but when you strum through that G chord, you stop there. That's the highest note because it's the melody note. So we can kind of work out phrase by phrase how to do this. If you keep in mind keeping the melody on top, simplifying your chords as much as possible, because another benefit of that is that it allows you to have free fingers to play the variations of the melody. And then do everything you can to kind of tie it together. So if there's a pause in the melody, let the chord ring. So I let that D chord ring in between the phrases because we want to have the feeling of both the chords and the melody. So I want you to work on that, and you can check it out again. There's a transcription of the way that I'm doing it in tab and everything at calvandersound.com, as well as just the chords that go along with it. So work on that one. Now, in the meantime, what I want to talk about is how to use this in other contexts, because there are lots of other songs, you know. Or you know, there are a lot of songs that mix the chord and the melody, and I want you to be able to do that whenever that comes up. The best way to do it, I found, is just to take a couple of keys, keep it in the open position, maybe take the key of D and the key of G. And what you want to do is play a D chord, and then play a major scale. So you go. As much of the time that you can keep the D down, or this partial D chord with your first and third fingers, the better. But it's okay to lift it up. Obviously, when you get to the C sharp, here you can't obviously leave the D on top of it, so you have to lift that up. So you go. And you can just kind of play through the major scale in open position while holding onto the chord the best you can. In the G, it would sound like this. Notice I'm holding onto that bass note of the G the whole time, so it can ring and it'll give some kind of glue to tie the whole thing down. Getting used to mixing melodies with chords can be really fun, because you can essentially arrange a whole song just for solo guitar, but it also works really well with the kind of jangle pop, like power pop type of thing that bands like Big Star or Matthew Sweet or REM even use, where they really integrate the melodies with the chords, and it's not one or the other. So have fun with this. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments section. Please subscribe to my channel, and you can check everything out at calvandersound.com, where there are materials that go along with all of these lessons. So have fun with it, and we'll see you next time.